new bills that would provide residents with hundreds of dollars in inflation relief money. So make sure to continue watching until the end of the video to find more about this. Now, Americans are paying more rent on their homes to ensure that a few years ago people were getting their stimulus. And according to economists, there's a silver lining in that hardship. It is a cool down that could help finally convince the Federal Reserve to pause its series of interest rate hikes. In this morning's report from the Labor Department on inflation showed that more than 90% of the increase in prices in July came from shelter. Other big contributors were things like motor vehicle insurance, and the overall rate of inflation was in line with the expectations of economists polled by the Wall Street Journal. So as the Fed molds its next steps, there will be two features of the Labor Department CPI calculation, and that poll Fed rate settles in the opposite direction. Now, the so-called base effect will mean that even if the monthly figures are fairly the same, they will be compared with their year-ago figures that contribute to the sharp cooling in inflation. That could be the 12-month increase well above the 2% target level that the Fed has. And this week, Governor Abbott has signed a bill that will cut $18 billion in taxes for Texas property owners. Governor Abbott said during a press conference, there really is only one reason why we even had the ability to pass the bill, and that's because of the hardworking men and women across every corner of the state. The legislation will increase the homestead exemption to $100,000 for all 5 million Texas homeowners. It will provide residents and seniors and small businesses with stimulus. According to the governor, a record amount of revenue for the state of Texas led to a record budget surplus. He added that they're giving back to the taxpayers of Texas, even after the governor signed a major expansion for people in Pennsylvania too. The program will provide a partial refund on rent or property taxes paid the previous year. It offers a financial cushion to some of the most vulnerable Pennsylvania residents. But the number of people receiving the benefit has fallen every year since 2009 after lawmakers failed to update the income limits. The new law reverses that decline and seeks to prevent it going forward. An estimated 187,000 people will be eligible, and also 400,000 current recipients are for the program. The income limits will be adjusted for inflation each year to ensure that small, routine increases to Social Security and do not knock out people out of the program. For Shapiro, expanding the program and tax rate programs are key promises he made to the seniors. Despite reservations from some Republican lawmakers, they agreed this should be done. And the lowest income household to be eligible for as much as $1,000 from stimulus checks. Folks, tell me in the comments down below, do you think Joe Biden will do what he promised to the people in sending out the fourth stimulus check? Oh, guarantee.
Are the American people going to see this, or are they just not paying attention to what's being done? Are they not being patient enough?
Look, I think the people all across the United States of America are starting to see shovels in grounds in their communities. They're seeing the president announce, as he did on Monday, a commitment to connecting the entire country through high-quality, affordable broadband access, which is going to make a difference in the lives of millions of people. And so, as we get farther into implementation, people are going to continue to feel.
Folks, we finally have some breaking news surrounding the fourth stimulus payment. So welcome back to my channel, everybody. This is your fourth stimulus check update and daily news report.
Of cutting Social Security benefits. And as far as I'm concerned, never on my watch will that happen. We made a promise. We made a promise that you work hard, that you pay into this system, and that it would be there for you. And we cannot make it break America's promise to our seniors.
Now, Senator Bernie Sanders, chair of the Senate Budget Committee, drafted a $6 trillion infrastructure package that Senate Democrats are considering approving without GOP support. That's according to people familiar with the matter. But Senator Sanders is pushing for aggressive federal action to overhaul the economy. After a meeting with Senate Democrats, Bernie Sanders said, "We have an enormous amount of work in front of us." Bernie Sanders talked about federal intervention on things like climate change, affordable housing, and the urgency to level the playing field for average families. Bernie Sanders also stated that Democratic efforts to approve a party line bill and reconciliation would commence within weeks. "We expect to have a whole lot done in July," he said. A spokesperson for the Senate Budget Committee declined to comment, but Senator Sanders later told reporters that he is seeking a certain amount of spending. The bottom line here is this country faces crisis. Working families are struggling, and it's about time we paid attention to their needs. Now, if you folks agree with Bernie Sanders and his push for more stimulus payments, then let's get this video to 1,000 likes.
A foundation for future American prosperity for years and decades to come. through smart and bold investments in our nation's infrastructure. As I've said for weeks, the discussions about infrastructure legislation continue.
Reconciliation is a legislative tactic that only requires 51 votes, though it involves strict budgetary rules. Sanders said this week that his reconciliation bill would include an expansion of Medicare, which would cut the eligibility age to 60 from 65. Senate Democrats are also weighing including immigration reform provisions in a reconciliation bill to help finance part of the infrastructure plan, underscoring their ambition. Democrats narrowly control the Senate and hold a thin majority in the House. They are still negotiating a potential bipartisan deal with Republicans, which has already seen opposition from key progressives, including Sanders. Those talks received a boost on after more GOP and Democratic lawmakers signed on to the skinnier infrastructure bill, expected to focus on traditional elements like roads and bridges. It will be largely financed with unspent relief funds and existing spending. The White House is giving the bipartisan talks until the end of the month and could potentially switch gears, pushing Republicans aside and prioritizing a Democratic-only bill. It may be Sanders' $6 trillion one. Some of Congress Democrats agree with a fourth round of stimulus payments, and some of you can actually receive an extra stimulus check this week. 36 million American families are expected to start receiving monthly relief payments this week. Eligible households will get up to $250 for every child ages 6 to 17, and as much as $300 for each kid for each dependent under 6, all the way through December. The cash being provided under a temporary expansion of the child tax credit will be delivered on or around the 15th of every month. The American Families Plan, introduced by President Biden, seeks to provide aid to American families, invest in teachers and education, and ensure comprehensive paid family leave and subsidized childcare. A desperately needed plan that will no doubt boost women's workforce participation, which has fallen to levels not seen since the 1980s. However, the American Families Plan cannot be signed to law without support in both the House and evenly divided Senate, and so far, the plan has been met with resistance from Republican lawmakers, despite the fact that 60% of U.S. voters support the plan. However, Biden administration officials are holding informal discussions with policy experts and lawmakers in an attempt to pressure GOP members of Congress and consolidate support for key components of the plan, such as the long-term extension of the child tax credit and paid parental leave, two of which are many aspects of the American Families Plan with broad bipartisan support. At a briefing, the director of the White House Office of Public Engagement and a senior advisor to the president said that the American Families Plan and American Jobs Plan marks an unprecedented investment in care by the Biden administration. If passed, the plan will ensure that low and middle income families spend only up to 7% of their income on childcare. Folks, that is all the news in this video. If you guys found this video useful and helpful,